Every year, Goodreads release a list of the most popular books of that year so far, and in June, they released the ones for 2024. There were some that I have already read and absolutely loved, there were some that I have never heard of, and there are some that were on my TBR that I have been terrified to get to. So I took this as the perfect opportunity to read some of the most popular books of 2024 so far, and this is what I thought about them. So, Goodreads released their list of the most popular books of 2024 so far. I have already looked through the list. I do know what my TBR is going to be for this video, but I would briefly take you guys through it just in case one, you haven't seen it yet. I'm absolutely 99% certain that you probably already have, and two, we can just go through all of the books that are on my radar that I definitely want to read that I have no interest in reading. I thought that could be fun before we get into all of the books that I am going to read. So they named it Readers Hit New Books of the Year so far. It was uploaded in June, and some of these books on here I'm quite surprised about, some of them also not so much. So we start with contemporary and historical fiction. I swear, normally Goodreads don't mix these, so I'm very intrigued as to why they have this year. On here we have 6 different books. Out of all of the 6, the ones that I am fairly interested in reading are The Women by Kristen Hanna. I have never read a book by Kristen Hanna before. I definitely want to. I know everybody loves The Nightingale, everyone cries at it, everyone loves it so much. I definitely want to get to that. I am slightly interested in James by Percival Everett. I definitely do want to read something by Percival Everett. I still never have, and I know they are incredibly popular. Equally with Wandering Stars, I've heard really good things about that, so I definitely would be quite interested in that one. But the book that we are going to be reading for this video is Martyr by Kavir Akbar. I feel like I've spoken about this book in a very recent TBR where I said that this is absolutely a 5-star prediction for me. I've had so many people recommend it to me. For my video where I read books that you guys thought I was going to rate 5 stars, so many of you put Martyr, and it was very, very close to actually being in that video. I'm quite happy it wasn't now because it means it can be in this one. But despite it being a 5-star prediction for me, and you guys also think that I'm probably going to rate it 5 stars, I genuinely have no idea as to what it is about. I want to go into it like that. I don't really want to know anything, so I'm very intrigued. That is going to be the pick for this video for contemporary / historical fiction. Then we go on to the mysteries and the thrillers. On here, I'm not going to lie, there weren't too many that I'm that interested in. First and foremost, we have First Lie Wins, which I'm not going to lie, I haven't really heard too many people talk about. I did then click on the book after seeing it at the top of this list. I'm so surprised by the rating and how many people have read it. I feel like I've been living under a rock. I do not know how I was not aware of this book, but clearly it's very popular this year. We also have a Frida McFadden. I don't think I'm ever, unless I need to, I'm going to read a Frida McFadden book again. And the only other ones that I am somewhat interested in reading are Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose, The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins, and The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. So those, out of all of the mystery and thrillers, are the only ones that I'm interested in reading. But because it is the first one, and based on the fact I'd never heard anyone talk about it before, it literally has what is the star rating? It has a 4.05 rating out of nearly 400,000 rated. That made no sense. Everyone loves this book, so this is going to be the one that I read for mystery thriller. Going on to the fantasy novels, this year they have a fantasy category and a romantasy category. I'm pretty sure that last year for the first time was where we saw the romantasy in the Goodreads Choice Awards. Out of all of the ones in the fantasy category, the only one that I was actually interested in reading I have already read, and that was The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Because I have already read that, I'm not going to read any of the fantasy ones here. But then we go on to romantasy, where we have a ton more. And some of them are interesting. I'm absolutely not surprised that there is a Sarah J Maas on there, A Fate Inked in Blood. I do own on my physical TBR. It is one that I am somewhat interested in reading. I don't know if I ever will get around to it, but because I own it, I would like to hope that I would. And then we have When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A Parker, which is a book that again is on my physical TBR, and in a couple of videos I've spoken about how daunted I am by this one because it's so big. I genuinely feel like because I am so daunted by it, I'm never going to read it unless I'm forced to. So guess what we're reading? We're reading When the Moon Hatched, babe. And then going on to sci-fi novels, I very rarely read sci-fi, but there was one standout in this category that I am absolutely going to read. Again, I've spoken about it a lot recently and how bad I want to read it, and that is The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley. I am absolutely not surprised that this is on this list, considering it is probably out of every single book released so far this year, probably one of the ones that I've heard the most about, and I still haven't read it. I still don't really know what it is about other than it is like a time travel and there's a little bit of a romance in it. That is all I know. I'm very excited for this one. That is the one we are going to read for sci-fi. Going into horror novels, I think that this category was the one that I had the most that I'm interested in reading. For example, Murder Road. I still have never read a Simone St. James. I really, really want to, so Murder Road. might be reading. My Darling Dreadful Thing I do have on my physical TBR, so I'm very excited for that one. I know it's like a gothic horror, which I absolutely love. Diavola I've been slightly interested in. I don't really know too much about what this one is about either, but I've seen good reviews. And then The Angel of Indian Lake by Stephen Graham Jones, but I'm not at that point in the series yet, but I will get to it eventually. So out of all of these ones, it was very much between My Darling Dreadful Thing and Murder Road, but because I've been wanting to read a Simone St. James for years at this point and I still haven't, we are going to be reading Murder Road. I'm very, very excited. I'm also a little bit daunted because I don't know what their writing style is like, but I cannot wait. And then lastly, despite there being a YA category and like a non-fiction category, the last category that I am going to be reading from is romance. And this one is interesting because out of all of the romances, the only one that I have read fully, and I say fully because I did DNF one of the books on this list. The one that I did read fully was Funny Story by Emily Henry. Absolutely loved it. I adore Emily Henry. She is absolutely an auto-buy author for me now. One of my favourite, if not my favourite romance author. I do really want to read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, but I do want to get to Yours Truly first. I don't want to jump the gun and then just get straight to this one, so we're not going to be reading that. Tessa Bailey, if you're watching, please leave. We know how I feel about Tessa Bailey. I'm not even going there. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I DNF'd, babe. I don't know if it's because I had never read a Carly Fortune before, but it just did not gel well with me. Maybe I was listening to it at the wrong time. I did listen to the audiobook. Could have also been because of that. But I did DNF it about 40% of the way through. It just did not catch me. It did not get me, and I didn't really want to finish it. So yeah. The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren I had never even heard of, so I don't really have too much interest. And then A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams I definitely want to read. I've had 7 Days in June by Tia Williams on my radar for years. I did start it in June this year. I did not finish it, so I did kind of soft DNF it, not because I wasn't enjoying it. It just was not the time, and this is like a 5-star prediction for me, so I want to make sure I am very much in the mood when I read it. So I haven't even read that one yet. But A Love Song for Ricky Wilde is her newest release. It did come out this year, and I haven't actually seen too many reviews on it, so I'm going to be going into it incredibly blind. This is the one that I'm going to pick for romance. And yeah, that is my TBR for this video. These are all of the books that I am going to be reading. I am so incredibly excited yet daunted. If you have read any of these books or any of the other ones on the list, definitely let me know what you thought about them. I feel like so many of these are going to be nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards, which I definitely want to do some videos surrounding this year for the first time. But I am excited to read these despite being a little bit nervous, and yeah, let's get reading. I have just started First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. I started it this morning in bed. I read literally the first 20% in bed. I absolutely feel like I could have binge read this entire book in one sitting. I went into this knowing absolutely nothing. As I said when I was taking you guys through the list, I had never heard anyone talk about this before. I don't know how. I must be living under a rock. Because of that, I was going into this incredibly blind, and I still absolutely kind of am. All I knew going into it was that we are following a girl called Evie Porter, except that's not really her name. She has made up this identity for one reason or another. I assumed it was a job, and she's pretending to be this girl. She's pretending to be somebody she's not. We don't really know initially her original identity. I don't want to say too much. Obviously, I'm really not that far through anyway. Like, I have no idea where this is going to go. It's already really interesting, and what I'm liking about this is, one, the writing is incredibly accessible. I feel like that is one of the main reasons. I felt like I absolutely could have binge read it in one sitting, and equally I'm 20% of the way through and stuff is already happening. Like, there's already intrigue, there's already a thrilling element, and that is kind of what I need to just binge read a thriller. I have read a couple of thrillers this year that I did very much enjoy, but for the most part, in terms of thrillers for me this year, especially newer releases, I have DNF'd so many of them. They haven't really been for me. So naturally I was a little bit worried going into this. I didn't want it to end up being another thriller that I just DNF, but right now I don't feel like it is. I feel like I just want to sit down, and I keep saying binge read it. I really hope I can. It's very intriguing. I'm fascinating to see where it goes, and I'm really hoping that I do get shocked by the ending. Like, I don't know if this has a big plot twist because I haven't seen anyone's reviews. I'm kind of happy about that. I have no preconceptions with this book. I have no idea. Like, I have no idea. Head empty. I'm just here for the ride. Hopefully it's a good one. Did I get out of one stripy top just to put another one on? I absolutely did. I needed to feel a little bit more comfortable to just read for the entire afternoon. I've literally just been sat reading. I've read another 14% and it's just so interesting so far. We are already learning so much so quick. I feel like I can give a little bit more of a synopsis now. So as I said previously, we follow a protagonist who does jobs where she basically pretends to be somebody else. She has somebody else's identity for one reason or another, whether it's to get information on this person or like get something that Mr. Smith is like her boss. I don't believe she's met him, and every time she's had like a call with him, he has a disguised voice. I feel like Mr. Smith might be somebody we know. I don't know who yet, but I feel like that might be one of the twists that we find out, like who Mr. Smith actually is, because otherwise we would just know who he is. So I'm very intrigued about that. But yeah, she does these really dangerous jobs for money, and her current job is to be Ryan's girlfriend. She's just moved in with him. She doesn't really know what the job is though, like what she needs to find, what she needs to get. So she's treading really carefully when all of a sudden one of Ryan's old friends, and they kind of ended a little bit badly, turns up to a party in the middle of this town where everyone is, with a girl who says that her name is Evie's actual real life name. Obviously Evie is like, what the f, this is terrifying, this girl is pretending to be me, so much so that she's pretending that like she's from her hometown, that her mum died of breast cancer, which Evie's Luca's actually did. It's really interesting because Evie and us as readers are like, why is this girl here? Why is she pretending to be Evie, who is actually Luca? But Luca, it's a lot. It's a bit confusing. I'm really intrigued to see where it carries on going. I probably will. I really hope I can finish it today. I have how long left? 3 hours and 5 minutes, so I feel like I should be able to finish it today. I just don't really want to put it down. It's so bingeable. You will no doubt see me in this exact same spot in about 4 hours time once I've finished this book. I have just finished First Lie Wins, and yeah, I'm gonna reenact my reaction to the end of the book because I was genuinely like, I was enjoying this book so much. I read 70% of it yesterday, which was like 220-ish pages. I cannot tell you the last time I binge read a book like that. So obviously I was really enjoying it. I read 70% and then I finished it this morning. Clearly I was really enjoying it. The writing style was so easy to fly through and so accessible. I was really expecting a really good twist, like based on how much everyone is loving it. But my reaction, I was literally laying in bed this morning like this. Oh, okay, that was it. Like, what? I kind of figured out about 20% of the way through what the main sort of twist would be in terms of like a reveal. I had an idea obviously throughout the entirety of yesterday of reading this book, who it was going to be, what the twist was going to be. I was pretty much right, and I love being right when it's a thriller, especially if the twist is really good. I like give myself a pat on the back. I'm like, okay, now Sherlock Holmes. But when it's a shit one, I'm just like, what was the point? I'm really conflicted because my entire reading experience with this book would have been like a 4-star, like a solid 4-star, because I binge read it, and then it got to the ending and it was so predictable and I did expect it, and equally I feel like it was very conveniently wrapped up. Because of that, it's going to land anywhere between a 3 and a 3.5 star. I do think I'm probably going to give it a 3.5 star, but like rate it a 3 on Goodreads. I don't know what else to say without getting into spoilers. If you have read this book, please let me know in the comments if you agree, like what you thought about the reveal. Obviously spoiler free, don't spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it, but I would be very intrigued to hear what you thought about the ending or this book in general, because I'm conflicted. But yeah, those were my thoughts on First Lie Wins. Wasn't obsessed with it, but I did binge read it. Like, it was a very good fun time. I would recommend it if you want a thriller to binge read, but the ending, it just let me down. 3.5 stars. The next book that we are going to be reading is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This is obviously her newest release. I don't know if it is the only other book she has published besides 7 Days in June, but I have already started it. I'm 60% of the way through, and oh my god, her writing is a joke. Her writing is a sick joke. It's so good. Obviously I'm reading this as the romance for this video, and oh, it is a mix of The 7-Year Slip and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Sold. That's all you need to know, babe. It is a romance with magical realism, and I did not know how much I love that until this very moment. Like, The 7-Year Slip is probably still one of my favourite, if not my favourite, romance book ever. I absolutely love the way Ashley Poston takes romances and puts a magical realism twist on it, and oh my god, this book is exactly that. If you love that book, please read this. Like I said, I'm only 60% of the way through. The characterization, the characters, the things that these characters have to deal with, and like the hardships are so real and so raw. There are two main sort of timelines in this book. One is following the male love interest in the 20s, and then also our female love interest in 2024. It does flick back and forth between them, but I'm loving both of their POVs. It is dual POV and I'm absolutely I'm floored by it, really. Not only am I obviously loving the romance, I'm loving the characters, I'm loving the magical realism element, I am loving the characterization, I'm loving the setting. It is set in New York and I am absolutely loving it. Honestly, I kind of just want to binge read the rest of the book, but I wanted to give you an update before because I feel like that's going to be a trend in this video where I'm going to read the majority of a book. I'm going to want to binge read it, but obviously I want to update you before I just sit down and read the entire thing, and I haven't even told you. So I'm gonna finish this today, hopefully. It's making me even more excited to read 7 Days in June whenever I do decide to finally get to it. Let's see. I have high hopes that the ending is gonna be just as good. Guys, I finished A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. Tell me why I cried. I've said it so many different times with so many different books. I feel like I never cry when it comes to reading. Like films, I'll cry like a little bitch. I'll cry within 2 seconds of a film starting. But when it comes to books, I very rarely cry at them. But I cried at this one. The ending shattered me. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that I haven't yet read 7 Days in June. I still really want to, but one of the main things that I heard when people talking about this book, other than how much they loved it and her writing, was that it was a tearjerker and people cried. So going into this, I had no preconceptions, but it did not surprise me that by the end I ended up crying. Her writing is astonishing and so beautiful. I underlined so many quotes in this. I instantly was like posting them onto my Instagram stories because I was completely floored. Like, her writing is so poetic. This is undoubtedly a romance that I'm going to be thinking about for a really long time. It also has a magical realism element, which thanks to this, like, I love Ashley Poston, for example. The 7 Year Slip is one of my favourite romance books of all time, but this absolutely solidified for me how much I love romance with a magical realism element. I love that the magical realism in this spanned over decades and we kind of like went back into time and into the present, and it was just so well crafted. Their chemistry was undeniable. Like, when I went on Goodreads after I finished it, I was really intrigued to see what the general consensus was. So many people are loving it. I think the average rating right now is currently sitting on like a 4.01, which is obviously really good. But when I was reading some reviews, some people were saying that the romance was their least favourite part in this, and as much as I absolutely adored the romance so much, and it definitely was one of my favourite parts, despite this being a romance, the way that Tia Williams writes makes it so lyrical and so poetic and so literary. There is so much going on besides the romance, and I love that. The New York City setting in this, I was absolutely transported. I have never wanted to go to New York more than I do in my entire life, and I'm not gonna lie, New York has been my #1 destination that I have always wanted to go. So I was just obsessed. If you couldn't tell how much I loved it based off of all of that, I ended up rating it 5 stars. And I never rate books 5 stars. I'm literally so happy. The excitement I have to now read 7 Days in June too. Like, I absolutely adored this. Tia Williams is incredible. Definitely going to be an auto-buy author for me if I adore 7 Days in June, which I'm sure I will. I cannot recommend this enough. Please read it. It was absolutely phenomenal. 5 out of 5 stars. I'm so happy we got a 5-star in this video. I'm not gonna lie, did I read the entirety of the next book in essentially one sitting? I did not want to put this down. I swear to God, I didn't even want to film. I just wanted to binge read it. And so that is what I did. I'm so sorry I didn't update you as I was reading it, but I did read Murder Road by Simone St. James. I finished this morning. Like I said, I did absolutely not want to put it down. This was my first Simone St. James book. I've been really intrigued for a while to read stuff from them. I just never got around to it. So this was my first. And I will say it was kind of what I was expecting. I really enjoyed this. This is How do I even explain this? Okay, the lighting is going absolutely crazy. It is one of my biggest pet peeves. I need to get a new camera. Speaking of, anyone has any good camera recommendations, please let me know. As I was saying, Murder Road, we are essentially following this couple who recently just got married. They somehow, some way, I'm not going to say specifically how because it is very much part of the plot, end up in this town via this one road, and as they are going through this road, there is a girl there who has been stabbed and she is kind of dying. So they decide to pick her up and take her to the hospital, as you would do. From that, things start spiraling. What happened? This road has some history, and it's just, I feel like that is all you should know before going into it, to be honest. But because I had never read anything from them before, I didn't know what their writing style was like. I didn't know if their books were like thrillers leaning more towards paranormal horror. And obviously this was listed as one of the best horror books of 2024. However, I have seen some conversations saying that like her books should be more sort of thrillers. Do I agree with that? I'm not entirely sure. I do feel like I would need to read some more books from them before kind of deciphering that myself, but it is interesting. This at times did feel more thriller than horror. At other times it felt more horror than thriller. I feel like it's one that very much blends the lines. I kind of enjoyed it for that. I really do like thrillers where I don't really know if it's going to be like an actual thriller or it's going to lean more paranormal. I enjoy that. This was kind of perfect for that. I'm definitely intrigued to read some more from this author. If anyone has any recommendations as to where I should go on to next, which one, if you've read anything from them, which one is your favourite? But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I ended up rating it 4 stars on Goodreads. I think honestly it would be more like a 3.75. I thoroughly enjoyed the first half a lot more than I did the second half. I feel I did not really like, I saw it coming, essentially the ending, but it's fine. Yeah, 3.75 stars. I'm happy that I read it. I'm happy that I finally read a Simone St. James. It was fun. I have an update. The next book that I went on to and attempted to read, and I say attempted to read, I have DNF'd this, was When the Moon Hatched. I was not expecting this turn of events. I literally own this gorgeous Waterstones exclusive edition. I literally also own the indie paperback. I have it on Kindle Unlimited also. And how do I decide to read it? I listened to the audiobook. I have unfortunately decided to DNF When the Moon Hatched. I was not expecting this, but I love myself too much. I have too much respect for myself to put myself through this. I feel like I will end up just hating it. As I said, I did start the audiobook for this. I ended up getting 17% of the way through, which I think was sitting at around like 3 hours or something. Hang on, let me actually get the statistics so I can tell you for real. Oh wait, sorry. I got 15% of the way through, which was 3 hours listened into the audiobook with 17 hours left. At that point, babe, I clocked out. This, honestly, as much as I was really nervous to start it, I did kind of expect to love it. I was really excited to go into a new fantasy world, especially one with dragons. But I'm not gonna lie, the world building, I haven't even read that many fantasy books, and I know that this world building was extra. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I obviously understand that every fantasy book needs world building, and the world building is obviously imperative, especially for a book that is going to become a series. Like, we need that. But my god, it was so much, and it was a lot all at once, and I could not digest it. I had no clue. I also think with that, it instantly initially made me confused. It made me realise that this was going to be a really long reading experience, which is absolutely fine. But 1, I didn't want to spend too long for it on this video. 2, I was already feeling bored 15% of the way through, and the fact, honestly, if this was a short read, I absolutely would have stuck it out. But the fact that I had 17 hours left of the audiobook, no, that, like, I could read so many more books in that time that I would actually enjoy, and what I swore to myself this year is that I would DNF guilt-free. So that's kind of what I've done. I don't know if this is a complete DNF in terms of I am never going to attempt to pick up this book or this series again. I'm not entirely sure. I might try again in the future, but right now was absolutely not the time. So I did, unfortunately, DNF it. Quite sad that the one fantasy book that we could read for this video, I have DNF'd, but hopefully we have more luck with some of the other reads. You know it's becoming autumn when the big light is on and the overhead light is horrendous. I wanted to give you an update that I now have started The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley. I am actually quite a way through this. I'm currently listening to the audiobook, and I want to say I'm about 60% of the way through. So many books for this video I just want to start and not put down and just continue reading them, not give any updates, which is terrible because then I'm literally not giving you any updates. But I am quite a bit of the way through now, and I am really enjoying this. I didn't really know what to expect going into it. Literally all I knew about the plot is that it had a time travel element. I had no idea how that was implemented, what else the book would discuss, but oh my god, it is so fascinating. In this we are essentially following a time travel sort of mission where people from different eras in the past come to the present day or their future to see how they would implement themselves into the present day life and to see how they would fit in and what happens if they don't, what happens if they do, and it is really interesting because of it. Initially getting into this, I really enjoyed our main protagonists and how one of them obviously didn't know anything to do with the modern day because he came from the past, and her having to teach him and him learning about everything in our current day was so fascinating because obviously it's so normal for us now for all of these things, and it just really does make you think of how people in the past would have reacted to certain things that we just take so for granted slash is just so normal to us. For that, I've been absolutely loving it. That is definitely the #1 thing that I am enjoying. Equally, I'm really liking the writing. It is equally humorous as well as a little bit heartbreaking in places. I'm definitely starting to reach the climax of the book and I don't really know where it's going. I don't know, I'm not nervous. Maybe I'm a little bit nervous as to how it's ending. Right now it's currently sitting on like a 4.25 stars, but I'm really intrigued because the ending I feel like it's absolutely going to determine what I think about the rest of the book, but so far really enjoying it. I did have really high expectations for this solely because of how many people have been adoring it slash have rated it 5 stars. Do I think it's going to be a 5-star right now? Probably not. As I said, I am really enjoying it. I definitely think I'm going to finish it today and then I will give you an update later on. I am about to head to work. I will give you an update later on once I finished it with all of my final thoughts. It's just so interesting. I have no idea how I have never filmed in this angle before. I feel like this is the best angle I could possibly film in my tiny room. Every video from here on out is probably going to be filmed in this angle. But we have a reading update. I have now finished The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley. Obviously I was listening to the audiobook for this and oh my god, it was very different to what I was honestly expecting it to be. I feel like I did already mention, if not, I did think that this was going to be a 5-star prediction. I did think it was going to be a 5-star read for me. Was it? Unfortunately not. This was absolutely fascinating. I understand wholeheartedly why so many people love this book this year. It is definitely so unique. I haven't read too many books with a time travel element. I feel like the only other one I can think of is How to Lose the Time War, which I also read last month and loved. But I haven't really delved my foot into a lot of time travel, and this was definitely a really accessible way into that, I feel like, even though I obviously haven't read any more and I don't even have any more on my radar. This was so fascinating, and that element of this book made it such a unique and really interesting read that equally carries so much analysis in terms of history and explorations with characters. Like, so much could happen. It felt like anything could happen in this book. I did already say in my last update that I was thoroughly enjoying it and I was really intrigued to see where it ended. The ending I absolutely adored. I obviously don't want to say anything to spoil it, but if you've read this book, like the ending when our protagonist meets another character like that, I thought it was actually brilliant. Like, just so good. Fell in love with these two characters. As much as it is a fiction book with a sort of sci-fi element, it is also a little bit of a love story. There is definitely a love story within this, and the like male love interest, I want to say, loved him. But I do think my main obsession with this book is just seeing all of these characters come to our present day and their future from the past and kind of adapting and like learning what we take for granted slash what is our everyday norm. I just think that that made it so interesting and actually quite eye-opening to read. This was really good. I do 100% see and understand why so many people have loved it this year. Do I think it's going to be in the Goodreads fiction like nominees? Absolutely. I will not be surprised if it also wins. Actually no, because Sally Rooney's book is coming out. That's probably going to win, but this I feel like is going to be up there and I'm really happy to have finally read it. If anyone does have any time travel sort of, but not like high sci-fi because I'm definitely not a sci-fi reader, but if anyone has any recommendations for fiction with time travel, please let me know because I do feel like it's something that I want to explore further in my literature. But yeah, really loved it. 4 stars in the end. Last but certainly not least, we are on to the last book for this video, and that is Martyr by Kavir Akbar. This is one of the most read and most loved, most popular literary fiction slash normal fiction books of 2024. This has been on my TBR for so long. I've been so intrigued by this for so many reasons. So many people have recommended it to me online, so many people have recommended it to me at work, in real life, and I've just been so fascinated by it. Everyone says I'm gonna rate it 5 stars. I'm a little bit nervous about that. I am currently 132 pages of the way through, so I am a little little bit of the way through, not halfway just yet, and I am really, oh my god, I'm really loving this. This is soul shattering. This is absolutely devastating and so heartbreaking, but it is so beautifully written. In this, we are following our protagonist Cyrus, and his life is absolutely devastating. He has experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of grief. He has lost both of his parents in ways that were equally devastating and equally, I don't want to say mundane, but the way that he has taken his grief and the way that he has dealt with his grief, he now wants to become a martyr. He is so set on having a death that means something and that makes a difference, and it is so fascinating reading from that narrative. Equally so heartbreaking. This, I feel like I'm definitely probably gonna cry at the end. I've dogged a couple of pages in terms of the writing. Like, I didn't have a pen on me, and I always have a pen on me to underline. I'm gonna have to go through this and underline it, but some of the ones I just, some quotes are just so beautiful. This book too, in terms of its narrative style and its context, is equally so interesting. We are following a couple of other people in Cyrus's life in terms of their interactions with him, but equally the impression that he leaves on people in his life or people he's just passing by or like in his past, and it's just so interesting. I really do feel like I don't have anything else to say other than it is so interesting and so heartbreaking and so beautiful. I can completely see currently why so many people have rated it 5 stars, why so many people think that I'm gonna rate it 5 stars. This was also one of the book recommendations a lot of you gave me in my video where I wanted to read books that you thought I was gonna rate 5 stars. So many of you said this, but I knew I was gonna read it for this video, so I didn't want to double up. Here we are. Am I gonna rate it 5 stars? Currently I have no idea, but the writing is absolutely astonishing, and yeah, I do kind of want to finish it today. I feel like I have just under 200 pages left, so it's definitely maybe doable. I do have work, but I'm definitely going to read this every waking second that I can on my break and my lunch. But yeah, we're on to the last book for this video. Maybe it might end with a 5 star. This morning I did finish Martyr by Kavir Akbar. I can't believe we've had 2 5 stars in this video. This book took me a little bit longer than all of the other books in this video to read, but it is one that you absolutely cannot really rush. It is such a powerful and imperative piece of fiction. Going into it, obviously I mentioned before, I had so many expectations that I was going to rate it 5 stars. You guys thought I was going to rate it 5 stars. I had so many people messaging me saying I was going to rate it 5 stars. I was scared that I was not going to rate it 5 stars. And I'm not going to lie, at the beginning of this book, because it is definitely one that you have to simmer with and you absolutely need to digest and put all your brain cells need to go into this book when you read it. I wasn't initially sure if it was going to be a 5 stars, but after kind of getting rid of that expectation and that pressure, I fell in love with this. I have already briefly mentioned what it is about, but it is a story on addiction. It is a story of grief. It is a story of wanting to be remembered and your life, and especially your death, to mean something. It brilliantly depicts and details the extent and like the innate desire to become a martyr and just to matter in the grand scheme of things. It was astonishing. This was beautiful. The writing was absolutely astonishing. The characters absolutely floored me. Oh my god, they were so raw and so real and so fleshed out. They feel like real people in my brain. What I also loved so much about this was that there were some really unique narratives in here. Like, we have a scene where the poet Rumi is in it, and like, I loved that so much, and it was just, it made the entire experience so magical. I absolutely cannot recommend this one enough. I think if you like literary fiction that speaks extensively about mortality, about the want and the desire to be remembered and to matter for something, especially when it goes quite in depth into grief and loss and parental loss and addiction and the more mundane, devastating sides of life. This was absolutely more of a difficult read. I would definitely recommend checking up trigger warnings before reading it, but oh my god, if you can read it and you have some sort of interest too, please do. I wholeheartedly hope that this like potentially could win the Goodreads fiction prize. I don't know if it will, but I would love for it to be up there. It was brilliant. As I said, I cannot believe that we got a second 5 star for this video. I am so happy and so in love with this book. Please read it. I loved it. I feel like I'm going to be talking about this one for ages. This is absolutely one that is going to stay with me for a really long time. But yeah guys, that was the last book that I read for this video of reading the most popular books of 2024 so far. What did I take away from this video? Do I think that all of these books deserve to be on this list? I don't know. I don't think I'm the voice of reason for that. A couple of these I obviously absolutely loved, with 2 5-star reads. A couple of them were very middle of the road. One of them I literally DNF'd. So I feel like we quite literally covered all bases in terms of ratings and how much I enjoyed them. I'm really intrigued to see which ones ones end up being nominated for the Goodreads Choice Awards this year, and which ones may potentially win it. If you want to see a video of me reading once, you know, later on in the year, once we do get the shortlist and the long list come out, if you want to see a reading vlog, whether like this, it's reading one from each category, or reading all of the fiction nominees, or all of the horror nominees, or all of like the fantasy ones, definitely let me know. I would love to do that. Those are some of my favorite videos to watch at the end of the year. I absolutely love it, so I would love to get involved with all of that fun. But yeah guys, I hope you really enjoyed. Obviously, as these are the most popular books of the year, if you have also read them, please let me know what you thought about them, whether you liked them or you disliked them. If there was any other ones on the list at the very start of the video that you would like to see me read, or you have like rave reviews about and you want to recommend to me, also let me know and I'll definitely be sure to try and get to them. If you're watching till the very end of this video and you don't really know what to comment any book emoji. And of course, if you did enjoy this video and you are not yet subscribed, it would mean the world if you did consider doing so. We have so much fun over here. I am so excited for all of the content for the rest of the year, and I would love to have you to join the fun. And yeah guys, as always, thank you so much for being here and for spending some time with me, and I hope to see you again very, very soon in another video.